There is something you are holding on to. You already know what it is. Maybe it is a phone that never lights up with the name you keep hoping to see. Maybe it is a job, or a house, or a marriage you were sure your life would have by now, and the years kept passing, and it never came. Maybe it is a person who is gone, and you still catch yourself saving up small things to tell them. Maybe it is the body you used to have, the friendship that quietly ended, the apology that never came and never will. Or maybe it is simpler than any of that. Just the quiet sense that your life was supposed to look different than this by now. That somewhere back there a turn was missed, and you are still standing at the spot where it happened, waiting for the road to give it back. Whatever it is, you know exactly how it feels to hold it. You replay it. You rehearse the things you would say. You keep a small part of yourself turned toward it, all the time, ready, in case it comes back. And you will not put it down, because putting it down feels like losing it for good. Tonight we are going to talk about letting it go, not losing it, not failing at it, letting go of it, on purpose, with your eyes open. And already something in you tightens, because letting go sounds like surrender. It sounds like quitting. It sounds like admitting that all of it, all that carrying, was for nothing. From the outside, opening your hand and giving up look like exactly the same motion. So here is the question to sit with, in the dark. When you finally let that thing go, are you giving up? Or are you, for the first time, free? There was a man who spent his whole life inside that question. He looked straight at a world that offers no guarantees, no rescue, no solid ground beneath any of us. And he found that letting go and giving up are not the same thing at all. That they are, in fact, opposites. His name was Albert Camus. And this is the right hour for it. Late and quiet, with no one to answer to and nothing that has to be settled before morning. The kind of hour when the only life in the room is your own, and you can finally turn and look at it directly, the way you rarely let yourself when the day is loud and other people are watching. We'll move slowly, from one thought to the next, and by the end, your grip on that one thing might feel different than it does right now. So let's begin. Stay with the thing you are holding for a moment longer. Not to fix it, just to feel the holding itself. Notice that it has weight, that it asks something of you, quietly, all the time. There is a part of your attention that never fully lets it out of sight, even now, even here. You have arranged a great deal of your life around it, the hours you spend, the things you say yes to, and the things you turn down, the way you measure whether a day was good. Somewhere underneath all of it sits this one thing you are still waiting for, still reaching toward, still refusing to set down. And here is what is strange. You probably call that holding on by kinder names. You call it hope. You call it commitment. You call it not being the kind of person who quits. And sometimes it is those things. But sometimes the holding has quietly become the whole point. And you have forgotten to ask what it is costing you to keep your hand closed. Because a closed hand cannot do anything else. It cannot pick anything new up. It cannot rest. It cannot be open. As long as it is gripping, it is busy and a little bit afraid all the time. So why don't we just open it? You already know why. Because letting go feels like a kind of death. It feels like betraying the version of you that wanted this. It feels like wasting all those years of carrying. And most of all, it feels indistinguishable from giving up, from going limp, from admitting that you were a fool to want it in the first place. The grip stays closed, not because it is working, but because opening it feels like defeat. This is the knot we are going to untie, slowly, tonight, because the whole question turns on a difference that the eye cannot see. Two people open their hands and release the same thing. One of them has given up. The other has been set free. From the outside, the motion is identical. The difference is entirely on the inside, in what each of them is doing in the quiet of their own mind. Giving up is what happens when you stop wanting to live the question at all. When you go numb or bitter, or when you trade the whole ache for some comfortable story that lets you stop feeling it. Letting go is something else. Letting go is opening your hand while keeping your eyes wide open, releasing the demand that life owe you a particular ending, without releasing your hold on life itself. Camus had a name for that second motion. He called it revolt. And he spent his life showing that it is the opposite of resignation, not a cousin of it. But to understand why he thought your freedom was hiding inside that open hand, we have to go back to the thing you have actually been arguing with this whole time. Not the plan, not the person, something underneath all of them. The quiet, unanswering silence that Camus called the absurd. And that is where we turn next. Go a little deeper into the thing you are holding, and something surprising turns up. You are not really gripping the job, or the person, or the missed turn at all. You are gripping a promise, a quiet belief that if you did your part, the world was supposed to do its part in return. Feel what your hold is actually made of. Underneath it is a kind of contract you have been carrying your whole life, mostly without ever noticing you signed it. That if you love someone well enough, they stay. That if you work hard enough, it pays off. That if you are patient and decent, and you keep your side, then one day your life will add up to something fair. The thing you are holding is the unpaid half of that bargain. You are still gripping it, because you are still waiting to be paid. So in the quiet, you ask the questions everyone asks. Why this? Why me? Why now? But you are not really asking for information. You are asking the world to honor the deal, and you wait for an answer. And the answer does not come. The night stays quiet. The morning arrives the same as always. The world goes on being exactly itself, beautiful and busy and completely indifferent. And it does not explain, and it does not pay. And here is the quiet reason why. The world does not pay you back, not because it is cruel, and not because you were cheated out of what you earned, but because there was never anyone on the other side to sign your contract in the first place. You made the bargain alone. You offered up your effort, your patience, your love, to a world that is not a person. It keeps no ledger. It has no hand to shake yours, and no memory of your good behavior. Fairness, it turns out, is something you carried in with you. It is one of the most beautiful things human beings have ever invented. But it lives in us and not in the sky. The rain does not fall only on the ones who earned it. The good years do not arrive in the order we deserve them. We assumed the world was keeping score, because keeping score is the kind of thing we would do. It was simply never that kind of place. One writer looked straight at all of this, the silence and the missing ledger and the bargain that was never real, and somehow refused to let it turn him bitter. His name was Albert Camus. He grew up poor in Algeria, in the hard bright light and the warm sea, a boy who loved being alive in his own body before he had any words for philosophy. And then, at 17, he began coughing blood, tuberculosis, and the world told him, without cruelty and without apology, that it had never signed his contract either. It owed him nothing, not fairness, not a long life, not even a reason. He gave that silence a name. He called it the absurd, and he meant something precise by it. The absurd is not the idea that life is silly. It is the gap itself. On one side you, holding your half of a bargain, needing the world to make sense and be fair and answer when you ask it why. On the other side, a world that simply does not work that way and never agreed to. And here is the part worth lying still with for a moment. The absurd does not live out there in the universe, and it does not live only inside you. It lives in your closed hand. It is the grip itself, the exact place where your need for a fair ending presses up against a world that never promised you one. So now you can see you're holding on for what it actually is. It is not stubbornness, and it is not weakness. It is the most human thing there is. It is you, refusing to accept that the deal was never real. Every time you grip the thing a little tighter, you're insisting, one more time, that the world owes you. And the world, one more time, stays silent. Which leaves a strange and important question. If the silence is really that complete, then why does holding on feel like the only safe thing left to do? Why do we grip harder and not softer the longer the world stays quiet? That is where we turn next. Here is something honest about holding on. It is not really patience. It is a demand. To keep gripping the thing is to insist, quietly, that the world still owes you the ending you wanted, that the story is not finished, that if you just hold on long enough, refuse hard enough, the missing piece will arrive, and everything will finally balance. We give that insistence a gentler name. We call it hope. And sometimes it truly is hope, the kind that keeps you alive. But sometimes hope becomes a place to hide, a way of refusing the life in front of you by living in a future that is always just about to pay out. Because notice what the grip protects you from. As long as your hand stays closed, you never have to feel that the thing is gone. The loss never quite finishes arriving. You keep the door open a crack, and through that crack, you keep the person, the plan, the version of yourself, alive and possible, just out of reach. Holding on is very often a way of postponing grief forever. You know the shape of it, the late-night bargaining, the if only, the conversation you rehearse with someone who is not coming back, the way you would rather stay a little angry than accept, because anger keeps the thing warm and present, and acceptance feels like burying it. But the closed hand has a cost, and the cost is everything. A hand that is gripping cannot do anything else. It cannot rest, and it cannot receive, and it cannot hold anything new. You spend the one life you actually have standing guard over a life you were supposed to have, and the quiet voice asks you, again, the question from the beginning. If you finally opened your hand, would that be giving up? It certainly feels like it would. Camus watched people try to escape this ache, and he noticed something uncomfortable. Almost every escape we reach for is just giving up, wearing a disguise. That is next. When we finally cannot bear the silence any longer, Camus said, we usually try to escape it in one of two ways, and both of them, looked at closely, are forms of giving up. The first is the obvious one. Despair. You decide that since the world will not give you the thing, nothing means anything at all. You go numb. You stop wanting on purpose, because wanting hurts. From the outside, this can almost look like wisdom, like you have risen above it all and stopped needing things. But it is not peace. It is a wound that has learned to call itself calm. You have not let the thing go. You have killed the part of yourself that wanted it, and called the silence that is left behind acceptance. The second escape is quieter and far more common, and Camus gave it a strange and striking name. He called it philosophical suicide. Here is what he meant. Instead of going numb, you reach for a story that makes the silence disappear. Everything happens for a reason. It was meant to be. They will come back when the time is right. There is a plan bigger than I can see, and one day it will all make sense. Any story that closes the gap, that fills the silence with a reason, so that you no longer have to feel the ache of not knowing. Camus understood the comfort of those stories. He was not cruel about them, but he called it a kind of suicide because of what it costs. To get the comfort, you have to stop looking clearly. You trade the truth that you do not know, that the world has not answered, for a soothing story that lets the pain stop. You quiet the question by killing your own honesty about it. And here is what the two escapes have in common. They both end the tension. They both get you out of the uncomfortable middle, where the ache is real and the silence is real, and you are still standing there, awake, inside both. The numb give up by feeling nothing. The comforted give up by pretending to know. And Camus believed that an entire real life happens precisely in the middle they are both fleeing. Eyes open, ache intact, neither lying nor going dead. Which means something humbling. A great deal of what you and I proudly call letting go is actually one of these two surrenders in disguise. We numb ourselves and call it moving on. We tell ourselves a comforting story and call it peace. Real letting go is neither of those. It keeps your eyes open and your ache honest, and it still, somehow, opens the hand. How is that even possible? To feel the full weight of the loss, refuse every comforting lie, and still release your grip. For that, Camus reaches for a picture, a man falling through the air. Picture a man falling through the air. At first, there is only terror. He claws at the empty sky. He reaches for anything to grab, a branch, a ledge, a hand, and there is nothing there. Every muscle in his body is braced for the impact that has to be coming, the ground that must be rushing up to meet him. The bracing is total, and it is exhausting, and it does not stop. This is what the fall feels like for as long as he believes in the ground. Now suppose something strange is true. Suppose there is no ground. Suppose he is falling through open sky that has no bottom at all. The impact he has spent the whole fall bracing against is never going to come. It was never there. It takes him a while to believe it, but slowly, something changes. His clawing slows. His shoulders drop. His arms, which were grabbing at nothing, begin to open. And the falling, which a moment ago felt exactly like dying, becomes something almost like floating. Nothing about the facts has changed. He is still falling at the same speed through the same sky. But he has stopped bracing against a ground that was never under him. That is the whole difference between giving up and letting go, held in a single image. Giving up is the man going limp because he has decided the ground will kill him and there is no use fighting. His eyes are shut. It is despair with the muscles relaxed. Letting go is the man opening his arms because he has finally understood there is nothing below to brace for. His eyes are open. It is the same loose body, the same fall, and a completely different inner world. One is collapse. The other is something close to peace. And it did not require a single fact to change. Only what he believed was waiting for him. The thing you are holding, you have been bracing for the loss of it, like a ground rushing up at you in the dark. And Camus offers a quiet, almost unbelievable suggestion that the impact you are braced against has, in some real sense, either already happened or is never coming, and the bracing itself is the only part still hurting you. But here a fair objection arrives. If you open your arms, haven't you simply accepted defeat? Isn't that just resignation with better lighting? Camus says no, and the difference between accepting and resigning turns out to be everything. That is where we go next. Resignation and acceptance can look identical from across the room. But inside, they could not be more different. Resignation says it doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. Nothing means anything. It is a shrug that is secretly a wound. It releases the thing by going cold toward it, by pretending it was never worth wanting in the first place. Resignation is just despair again, in quieter clothes. Acceptance, the kind Camus spent his life on, is harder than that, and far more alive. Acceptance looks straight at the thing. It sees, clearly and without flinching, that it is gone, or that it is not coming. It feels the full weight of that, the whole ache, and it refuses every comforting lie about it. And then, holding all of that, with its eyes wide open, it still chooses not to let the loss close its hand around the rest of life. Acceptance says, this is true, and it mattered, and I will not pretend otherwise. And I will not burn down my one life, keeping vigil over it. At the very end of his novel The Stranger, Camus gives us a man who, after everything, opens his heart to what he calls the gentle indifference of the world. And that phrase holds the whole turn. The world is indifferent. It is not against you. It is not punishing you. It never hated you. And it never owed you. It is simply silent, the way the night sky is silent. And once you stop demanding that the universe apologize, that same indifference you took as cruelty can begin to feel almost like tenderness, like being quietly let off a hook you did not know you had been hanging from your whole life. And here is the part that matters most, lying here in the dark. Acceptance does not erase the love. You can let go of the person and keep, forever, the fact that you loved them. You can release the future you wanted and keep the truth that you wanted it, that it was worth wanting. Letting go does not delete the thing. It only stops you from setting your actual life on fire to keep one candle burning in an empty room. So listen to the question again, the one from the very beginning. Is letting go the same as giving up? And now you can feel the answer in your own chest. Giving up stops caring. Letting go keeps caring and stops clinging. That is the entire difference between them. And it is enormous. And once the hand finally opens, Camus says something almost defiant happens next. Not surrender. The opposite of surrender. He called it revolt. You might expect that after all this letting go, the lesson would be to want less, to cool down, to hold everything loosely, at a safe distance, and never again let anything matter enough to hurt you. That would be the tidy ending. It is not the one Camus gives. He says the opposite. The right answer to a world that promises nothing is not to want less. It is to live more, and to do it on purpose, without waiting for permission and without waiting to be paid. He called this revolt. And he did not mean anger, and he did not mean fighting the sky. He meant a refusal to be quietly defeated by the silence. You know now that the universe owes you no happy ending. You have let go of the demand for one, and then, eyes open, owing the world nothing and owed nothing back, you choose to throw yourself fully into your one life anyway. To love again with no guarantee that it lasts. To begin the plan again, knowing it might not arrive. To care freely, because you have decided it is worth caring, not because anyone promised you a reward for it. This is where his oldest image comes back. Sisyphus, the man from the myth, condemned by the gods to roll a great stone up a hill. Watch it roll back down, walk down after it, and begin again, forever. It is meant to be a picture of a wasted life, the most pointless labor imaginable. And Camus ends his most famous essay by saying the thing no one expects. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, because in the moment he walks back down the hill with his eyes open, owed nothing, expecting nothing, and still chooses to put his shoulder to the stone again. He is freer than any of us who keep pretending our boulders are rolling toward some finish line. The struggle itself, Camus said, is enough to fill a heart. So letting go of the thing you are holding is not the death of wanting. It is the beginning of wanting freely, without the contract, without the guarantee, without the slow poison of feeling owed. When you finally open your hand, you are not giving up the wanting. You are giving up only the demand. The wanting itself, you get to keep, lighter than it has been in years. And the moment the demand drops away, something quiet begins to come back to you. But that gift is easier to feel than to be told about. So before we name it, let's slow down and bring this work of opening the hand to a few of the particular things we each tend to grip the hardest. Not the idea of letting go now, but the quiet practice of it, one hold at a time. Start with the one almost everyone is holding, whether they would ever say it out loud or not. the person you meant to become. You can picture them even now. Someone a little braver than you turned out to be, a little more disciplined, more patient, further along. The one who finally wrote the thing, or left the city, or forgave the parent, or kept the body you used to have, or built the life you sketched out for yourself when you were young and certain. They have been walking just ahead of you for years, always about to arrive, always starting next Monday. And the distance between you and them is one of the quietest, heaviest things a person can carry. Here is what is strange about that person. They have never once had a hard day. They have never been tired or afraid or out of money or out of time. They have never had to choose between two good things and lose one of them forever. They are flawless because they have never had to actually live and pay the price of living the way you have every single day. You have been measuring your real life with all its weather against a person who has never once had to stand out in the rain. Of course, you came up short. The comparison was never fair, because only one of the two of you is real. Camus would tell you something bracing here and also kind, that there is no truer self waiting somewhere inside you to be finally revealed. No finished version of you that you betrayed. You are not a statue hidden in a block of marble. You are the sum of what you have actually done and felt and chosen. For a moment that can sound cold, and then it turns warm, because it means the gap you have been grieving is a gap between you and a ghost. The person you meant to become was never real. The person you actually became has been here the whole time, doing the hard, unglamorous, unfinished work of being alive. To let that ghost go is not to give up on growing. It is the opposite. It is to stop spending your strength mourning a phantom, and to give that strength instead to the only person who can ever actually change anything, which is the real you, here, tonight, exactly as far along as you are. So loosen your hold on the one who walks ahead of you. Let them fade gently back into the light they were always made of, and turn, instead, toward the harder and far more interesting question of what the real you might still do. Owed nothing. Promised nothing. Free. There is another thing we hold almost as tightly. Not a version of ourselves, but a wish about how others see us. We turn to that next. There is a particular ache that has nothing to do with plans or outcomes. It is the wish to be fully understood, to be seen all the way down by someone, and to have them finally say, "Yes, I know exactly who you are, and it is all right." So you wait for it. You wait for the parent to finally understand the choice you made, for the friend to see why you had to do the hard thing, for the person who hurt you to grasp completely what it actually cost you. You explain and you explain again in real conversations and in the ones you only ever have at night. And underneath all of it is the belief that if they could just understand you fully, then something in you could finally rest. But here is the gentle, difficult truth. No one will ever fully understand you, not because they do not love you, and not because you have failed to find the right words, but because no one can climb all the way inside another person. Everyone you will ever meet is standing at their own window, in their own house, looking across at yours. They can see your light. They cannot stand in your room. In the deepest place, You are alone in there, the way every person who has ever lived has been alone in there. This is not a punishment. It is simply the shape of being a self. Camus knew this solitude well, and he did not flinch from it. And strangely, naming it honestly is where the relief begins. Because as long as you are waiting to be completely understood, before you will let yourself rest, you will wait your entire life. You will perform your entire life, arranging yourself for a verdict that is never going to be read out. The moment you let that wish go, the performance can stop. You can let yourself be known only partly, seen only in pieces, misread here and there, and loved anyway. Not understood completely, just held imperfectly by people who are also alone in their own rooms, reaching across the same dark toward you as best they can. And that turns out to be enough. It has to be, because it is what there is. And it is, once you stop fighting it, a great deal. To be loved without being fully understood is not a lesser kind of love. It is the only kind there has ever been. So let go of the apology that is not coming, and the recognition that will not arrive in the shape you wanted. Let the people in your life off the impossible hook of seeing you completely, and let yourself off it too. You do not have to be understood in order to be at peace. You only have to stop demanding it as the price of peace. And there is a heavier version of that same waiting. Not only the wish to be understood, but a wound you will not put down until someone finally admits that they were wrong. That is the next thing we turn to. There is a hurt you are still carrying. You know the one. Something a person did or failed to do a long time ago now, and the wound it left never quite healed the way it should have. You have carried it so long that it has almost become a part of you. And holding on to it feels, more than anything else we have talked about tonight, like justice. You keep the account open because closing it feels like saying that what they did was all right, like letting them get away with it. So you keep the books. Somewhere inside you there is a ledger, and on it is written exactly what you are owed: an apology, an admission, some sign that they finally understand the damage they caused. And you have promised yourself that you will not let the wound go until that debt is paid in full. But think back to the contract from the beginning of tonight, the one the world never signed. This debt is often the same. The person may be gone now. They may have changed beyond recognition, or they may be simply incapable of ever seeing what they did. The apology you are waiting for may never come, in this life, in any form you would accept. And so you sit, year after year, holding an unpaid invoice in the dark. And here is the cruel arithmetic of it. The person who hurt you has very likely moved on. They are asleep tonight, or they have forgotten, or they are gone entirely. And you are the one still awake, still holding the wound warm, still paying the interest on a debt that was always theirs. The grip you keep on the hurt does almost nothing to them. It falls, nearly all of it, on you. To let an old hurt go is not to say that it did not matter. This is the part that frightens people, so hear it clearly. Letting go of the wound is not excusing what happened. It is not deciding it was fine, or pretending it did not cost you, or opening the door to let the person back in. It is something quieter. and it is entirely for you. It is closing the account, writing off the debt, not because it was ever paid, but because you have decided to stop spending the rest of your one life trying to collect on it. Because the debt binds both ways. As long as they owe you, you are tied to them, roped to the worst thing that ever happened to you, dragging it behind you into every new room. Forgiveness, the real and unsentimental kind, is simply cutting that rope from your own end. They may never know you did it. They do not need to know. It was never really about them. It was about whether you would spend your remaining years standing guard over a wound, or finally set it down and walk on lighter. It is the same open hand we keep returning to, not going numb to what happened, not pretending the blow never landed, looking straight at it, feeling the full weight of it, and then choosing, for your own sake, not to let it close your hand around the whole of your future. And when you finally stop trying to collect on that debt, you may notice that it was only one chapter of something larger, a whole story you have been carrying about how your life was supposed to go, with you in the right, and the world still owing you the ending. That story is the last and the deepest thing we will sit with, underneath the job and the person and the version of yourself you meant to become, and the old wound you have guarded for so long. There is one more thing you are holding. It is the quietest and the strongest of all of them. It is the story. Every one of us carries a story of how our life was supposed to go, the shape it was meant to take, the order things were supposed to happen in. By this age, this. After that, the next thing. A beginning that led somewhere. A middle that made sense. An ending that paid off everything that came before it. You may never have written it down, but you know its plot by heart, because you measure your real days against it constantly. When life follows the story, you feel you are on track. When life departs from the story, you feel that something has gone wrong, even when nothing actually has. And gripping the story is, in a way, the root of all the other holding. You hold on to the person because they were a character in it. You hold on to the plan because it was the next chapter. You grieve the version of yourself because they were the hero the whole thing was building toward. Loosen the story, and every other grip begins to loosen with it. Here, Camus brings us all the way back to where we began. There is no author. There is no script you were handed and then failed to perform. The absurd, once more, is exactly this quiet truth. Your life was never a story moving toward a meaning. It is something stranger and freer than that. It is a long sequence of real days. This one, and then this one, and then this one, with no narrator anywhere promising that they add up. We turn our lives into stories because stories are how human beings make sense of things. But the sense is something we lay gently over the days. It was never hidden down inside them, waiting to be found. And think of who Camus chose to leave us with. Sisyphus has no story. There is no arc to his hill, no chapter that finally pays off, no ending where the stone stays at the top. There is only this push, and then the next one, on and on. And Camus dares us to imagine him happy anyway. precisely because he has been freed from the one thing that quietly torments the rest of us. He is no longer waiting for his life to mean something later. He is simply, fully, inside the only moment that was ever real, which is the one he is in right now. So let the story loosen, not the memories, and not the love, and not the things that genuinely matter to you, only the plot, only the insistence that your days were supposed to line up a certain way, and that you have somehow failed because they did not. When that grip finally opens, you may be afraid, for just a moment, that nothing at all will be left. But that is not what happens. What is left when the story finally falls quiet is not nothing. It is everything that was actually here the whole time, underneath the plot you kept laying on top of it. And that is the last thing we will sit with tonight. All the time you were holding on, you were not really living here. You were living somewhere else, in the future that was supposed to arrive, in the past that was supposed to have gone differently. Your hours were spent in a waiting room, eyes on the door, waiting for your real life to be called in. Camus noticed that the man who truly accepts the silence gets something back for it, like someone who has been told his time is short and who suddenly sees the ordinary morning as almost unbearably vivid. You get the present returned to you, stripped of the illusion of a future you are owed. You are left holding the one thing that was always real. This hour, this breath, this life, exactly as it is, and not as it was supposed to be. The freedom was never that the fall ends. The freedom is that you stop bracing, and in the stillness of not bracing, you can finally feel where you actually are. The warmth of the cup in your hands, the person who is here, instead of the one who left. The body you have tonight, instead of the one you keep grieving. Nothing was added to your life. The demand simply stepped out of the way, and the present came flooding back into the space it had been blocking all along. That is what Camus drew up out of the absurd. Not despair, and not a comforting lie. He named three things: revolt, freedom, and passion. The freedom to act, here, in the only place that living has ever actually happened, which is now, which is here, which is this. Your hand is still closed around the thing. You do not have to open it tonight. No one is asking you to. Only to notice, quietly, that it can open. That the ground you have braced against for so long may not be waiting in the dark below you. And that the life you actually have has been here the whole time. Patient, just on the other side of your closed hand. So we come back one last time to where we started. Is letting go the same as giving up? You can feel the answer now. Giving up closes you. It numbs the wanting or buries the ache beneath a story and calls the silence that is left behind peace. Letting go does the opposite. It keeps your eyes open and your heart awake, and it simply unclenches the hand. It releases the demand that life owe you a particular ending, and it keeps everything that was ever true and tender about the wanting. The thing you are holding is still there. No one is asking you to throw it away or to pretend it never mattered, only to notice that your hand can open, that you are even now freer than the grip has let you feel. If you would like to follow Camus further, begin where all of this begins, in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, where he walks straight into a world without guarantees and refuses to despair of it. Read The Stranger and stay to its last pages, where a man lays his heart open to the gentle indifference of the world. And when you are ready for the generous, defiant side of all this, read The Rebel, his long argument that to truly say yes to life, you must first learn what you will no longer wait for. Camus ended his most famous essay with a man and a stone and a hill that leads nowhere. And against all reason, he wrote, one must imagine Sisyphus happy, because the struggle itself, he said, is enough to fill a heart. So let it go. Not because it did not matter, but because you matter more than the grip. And tonight, one must imagine Sisyphus well rested. Good night.